Good morning, folks. How are you? It is not even morning. So once again, we're going to go back to, maybe I should just start calling this the Mañana no Más daily check-in instead of the Mañana no Más morning check-in. But I did want to touch base with you and just celebrate a new week. Celebrate a couple of things as this new week starts off to a really, really great start. 1 o'clock in the morning, we pushed the magic button and we made our San Francisco project live. So on these daily messages, you've heard me talk about, hey, I'm working on this web project. I'm working on this web project, working on this web project. And I would say the San Francisco project, right? Because my client's from San Francisco. So now I can finally say it out loud and I can say Inner Treasure Hunt. InnerTreasureHunt.com is the website we've been working on developing. The client did a tremendous job in, kind of having a vision and their colors picked and a kind of a palette of images and things to work with that made developing the site so much better, so much faster, right? So I'm not a huge graphical person. I'm really good at making things work, but I'm not a big graphics person. I don't have a great eye for graphics. If you can give me a decent looking picture and a color palette, I can make you something awesome, but I'm not the guy that's gonna I don't make logos, right? It's like some people you can talk to them and that you can tell them what you want to do. And then they show you an image and you're like, that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. But you didn't know that that's what you wanted until that person made that, right? I'm that person where my brain doesn't do it. So anyway, with the help of the client and with some other tools, we were able to get this website done. And it is a really good bones website where it's got a learning management system in it, a membership program. It's going to have events, blog, podcast is going to get piped through it. It's got some e-commerce with a store. And so there's a lot of moving pieces in there. And these moving pieces link together well, look good. There's consistency throughout the website. The kind of the marketing branding feel of the site is really strong. So I'm happy with the project. So Inner Treasure Hunt was released at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm super stoked to bring that to your attention. If you want to go check it out, go to InnerTreasureHunt.com. I also put it in the weekly value-added email that goes out from Mañana no Más, and just helping them promote their effort, promote their work. I'm not on a commission or anything like that. I just think it's fun to share these projects. And I really want to help my client succeed. I want to help my client find success, even if it's in markets that they wouldn't usually tap themselves. So super stoked about that. Awesome. Now, having an unencumbered Monday morning was pretty cool because then I was like, well, I did my Lifter LMS work early. I got the website up on time. And I was like, my mountain bike was broke on Saturday. I was a little upset about that. Drove out to the trail, was going to ride my mountain bike Saturday with my buddies. Everybody's at the trailhead and my bike won't shift. And so I'm like, so I didn't go on Saturday. So this morning I was like, it's an unencumbered Monday, no appointments. The website launch went smooth. I can, with a clean conscience, go mountain biking. So I did. I went and did about 5.5 miles up Cole Canyon. Cole Canyon's a pretty hard climb in our area in Southern California. And so it's the opposite side of Skyline Trail. So Skyline Trail is real popular, and Cole Canyon is not as popular, maybe because it's a little more vertical. There's a lot of sections that are 21% grade climb, right? So it's a little bit of a beast. So anyway, I climbed up about 5.5 miles of that, turned around, came back, gave me an 11-mile ride for today. Felt really good about it. And then a weird thing happened. Could be an obstacle. Could just be hey, whatever, right? But here's where I want to talk about like the gift of critical thinking. People say to me a lot, people in a professional arena. So, and I'll use Suzuki as an example, right? I worked inside the office at Suzuki. I was not a vice president. I worked for vice presidents and presidents of the company. I was a manager of a team, and my team was training and publications. But for some reason, I kept getting taken to meetings that were like about operations or marketing or communications or even accounting at some point. The legal team would bring me in to consult. And we'd be having these meetings, and there'd be a lot of times where I would say, why am I in this meeting? Why are you calling me to this meeting? Well, I've always had a gift of discernment, right? A gift of kind of cutting through the mess. People that did my why, like when you go to the Why Institute, they say, what's your why? Well, my why is making sense of the complicated. So my why is making sense of the complicated. My next why is finding a better way. And then the last thing was simplifying things. So that's why training is such a draw for me, right? Because when I make training for somebody, I'm able to take something that's very complex and I'm able to drill it down into channels of communication that make more sense. And then I'm able to simplify that delivery, right? And find a better way to share it with them. And I really enjoy that. So it fits that's my why. That's how things work in my head. So I think about how, even at Suzuki, they would invite me to like a legal meeting. And why am I in a legal meeting? And why am I in here for? And then something would come up in the meeting and someone would say, well, Kurt, what do you think about that? And I'd say, I don't even know why we're having this meeting because A, B, and C don't align with X, Y, and Z. And until there's alignment between those, it's not a concern of ours. I don't know why I'm here. And then they would go, man, so glad you're here. I guess it's a non-issue for now. We'll get to it later, right? So we'll wait and see if A, B, and C align with X, Y, Z down the road. But right now they don't. It's not a concern to us now. Let's move forward. And those were the kinds of conversations where I would say things like that. So today I'm driving home in the truck, and this is like the distraction. And this is just an example of how critical thinking works. My Dodge truck has 250,000 miles on it. And everyone looks at it and tells me, oh, that's a beautiful truck. It's a red Dodge with a camper shell on it. And it does look good. It's a pretty good looking truck, but it's got 250,000 miles on it. I know the thing is getting long in the tooth. It broke down once. Once it broke down. Now, I do a lot of maintenance on my vehicles. So anyone that knows me knows that I take pretty good care of my stuff. But this truck broke down. It had a fuel pump go bad. Now, fuel pumps, they go bad. It's not the end of the world, right? But it's a pain in the butt. So I didn't do the fuel pump. I was starting to do the fuel pump and I got frustrated. So I sent it to Big O to have the fuel pump put in, and it was an aftermarket fuel pump. And that was 2 months ago. Put the pump in, off it went. Out of sight, out of mind. Don't even think about it. Truck runs great, right? I just did a thermostat in it and a coolant flush and replaced the hoses as maintenance, not because anything overheated or went bad. The full maintenance has been done. The full service has been done. The truck's in really good shape. So I'm coming back from mountain biking and I'm looking at the thing. It says, like 40 miles to empty, 38 miles to empty, 36 miles to empty. And I'm like, oh, I got to stop and get gas. Okay, but I still got 36 miles and I'm only 5 miles from home, so it's no big deal. And I'm driving, and all of a sudden, poof, the truck just stop running. I put it in neutral. I go to crank it. It cranks and cranks and cranks, doesn't start. I drift over, pull over, get off the road a little bit, out of traffic's way, pop the hood. I check to see if there's fuel in the fuel rail, and there is. Yeah, there was fuel in the fuel rail. I turned the key and I didn't hear the fuel pump going. And I thought, oh, that fuel pump's bad. I can't believe it. So I kicked the bottom of the fuel tank, and bruised and ruptured the inside of my ankle bone. Hurts like the dickens. Still hurts right now. Anyway, turn the key and I hear go bzzz. So it's working, right? Fuel pump's working. I go back and I check fuel at the fuel rail. There is fuel in the fuel rail. I crank it over. It just cranks and cranks and cranks, but it doesn't start. I don't see any fault codes. I don't see any check engine light. I didn't get any warnings. I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to call a tow truck. I don't want to call a tow truck. I don't want to call a tow truck. So I call my wife and I say, hey, come over here. I'm in a no parking zone. Come over here and steer the truck. I'll push it to a safe place to park it while I figure out what my options are. My main goal is just getting it out of the tow zone. I don't want it in a no parking zone. It's near a school. So she comes over and it hits me. I'm like, wait a minute. Anyone that works in the automotive industry, anyone that works in a service related field, there's certain questions that you ask when a customer comes in with a drivability issue. What was the recent work that was done to the vehicle? What happened right before it failed? How can I duplicate the concern for my technician, right? These are words that you would say. And so I thought to myself, I did have that fuel pump done. The fuel pump's working. There's fuel in the fuel rail. What if there's not enough pressure in the fuel rail? What if the fuel pump's bad? What if the fuel pump regulator is bad? What if? And I start going through the what ifs. Then it hits me. What if the aftermarket fuel pump, a pump sits in the top of so that you have the tank. Let's do this. You have a tank, and in the top of the tank goes a fuel pump like that, right? And that's electric, and it sits and goes, and it's going to suck fuel up and send it to your engine. That means it has like a straw, what they call a fuel pickup, that goes to the bottom, right? What if the fuel pickup in my aftermarket fuel pump, instead of coming down to here, only comes to here? What if the fuel sender, what if the fuel sending unit that tells me how much fuel I have is correct, and it says I've got this much fuel, but the straw is only this deep? So even though I have fuel, it's not going to pick up the fuel because the pickup isn't long enough. Folks, I put 2 gallons of fuel in the truck and it fired right up. Can you imagine how upset I would be if I were to hire a tow truck and pay for a tow truck to take it to my house and spend hours diagnosing it, only to have like a friend come over and say, hey, why don't you try putting some gas in it? So your obvious question, am I going to pull the fuel tank down and change that fuel pump out? No, I'm not. We're not going to run the fuel tank down that low. That's what we're going to do, right? So the family process and procedure now is don't let the fuel tank go below a quarter tank, and just keep that sucker full. Besides that, when you have an electric fuel pump in your fuel tank, it actually uses fuel as a coolant to keep the pump cooler, and it helps stretch the life of that component further and further. So it's better to keep fuel in the tank anyway, right? But I cannot do the whole, hey, 10 miles till empty, I can still go get gas. No, I've got, at 50 miles to empty, I got to be looking for a gas station. So that was my day. Came back, and my daughter made me a wonderful ramen soup for lunch. It was fantastic. My kids, oh my goodness, my kids can cook. And now it's time to get nitty gritty again with Mañana No Mas and catch up to some things. If you watch my social media, you've probably seen some posts getting a little stagnant, maybe some things getting recycled. But when I commit to a client to get a project done on time, I commit to that client to get their project done on time. So I've been really focused on launching the San Francisco project, the Inner Treasure Hunt website. I've been really focused on launching that on time. And I got a little behind on my own stuff for Mañana No Mas and the Power Sport Academy. So you'll see some posts getting refreshed. You'll see some new content coming out soon on social. And hopefully you can give me some support, shares, likes, things like that, especially on the new stuff. The other side of the coin is Dealer Vendor Match. DealerVendorMatch.com does a live show every Sunday. A week ago Sunday, I was on for the first episode with Paul, the host, and we talked about the difference between automotive and power sports in a fixed operations mindset, right? So we talked about running a service department for an automotive store versus a power sports store. And we didn't cover half the stuff we intended to cover. He had a lot of questions he wanted to ask. And so we did round 2 last night on a LinkedIn live show. I like being part of these shows because there's an audience there, maybe through second person affiliation, right, is attracted to power sports, the Power Sport Academy. But it's just really cool because like I do a lot with the automotive service industry because I want to stay sharp. I want to know what's automotive doing right now, because it's going to be what power sports is going to be looking to do in 5 to 10 years, pickup, delivery, geofence marketing, things like that. So I want to make sure that I am familiar with those tools before they become commonplace in power sports. I want to be the expert. I want to be the expert all the time. I want to be the expert in the future too, right? And so I do the show, and it was great. It was an hour for the first show. We went long last night. We actually did almost 90 minutes and had a really, really, really good time. If you're on the weekly value-added email list, you got the links to see the replays. I'm going to post those links up in LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You'll see those links to that show. But if you get a chance, I'd really, really appreciate you, A, watching it, maybe giving some feedback or some comments, but B, sharing it. Because if you know anyone that runs a power sports dealership, they could use this kind of information. And whether they sign up for the training or not, it gives them the inspiration to know the path to go to get the help they need to find more success. I love you guys.